Hey friends, welcome to the channel. My name is Jonathan. I'm a dietitian that supports people who are struggling with binge eating, and sometimes I make these reaction videos and sometimes I make some educational videos. But today, to get straight to the point, this is very controversial. We're going to be reacting to Glucose Goddess. If you haven't heard from her, then you will hear from her now. She's a biochemist who focuses on trying to reduce people's blood sugars and keep the spikes as low as possible. So let's get straight to it.
So if you eat sugar on an empty stomach, for example, first thing when you wake up, your stomach is empty, your upper intestine is empty, you eat the Snickers, it goes like zoop, poof, and super quickly into your bloodstream. There's nothing stopping it at all.
First of all, Snickers, it's a combination of fats, bit of protein, carbohydrates, and it still has some fiber because it's quite nutty, so it doesn't go immediately into your bloodstream. But let's continue.
If you have that same sugar after a meal, what happens? You're still getting the dopamine from the sweet food. So you're still getting the pleasure. But because there's other stuff in your stomach, those glucose molecules are just gonna sort of stay on top and make their way more slowly into your intestine and then into your bloodstream. And that's really key. Like if we're able to give glucose molecules to our body more slowly, the concentration of glucose in our blood rises more slowly, we don't get that big of a spike and that big of a drop.
It is true, and it is evidence-based, that if you have a meal paired with something that's quite sugary or is quite sweet, then the blood glucose response wouldn't be as high. It's this thing in diabetes education called food pairing. Try to pair your sweet foods with the main meal or something high in fiber. I wouldn't call it really a hack, but the same thing is just because every time you want to have a chocolate bar, you don't have to have a full meal with it. You can pair that chocolate bar with maybe some nuts or pair it with a banana. You don't have to have a proper meal about that. And another thing I want to note is that just because your blood sugars are going to rise, it doesn't mean we have to avoid all blood sugar rises, because whatever food we eat, at some point or some amount, our blood sugar is going to increase. But one thing, really interestingly, most of these personalities on the internet that focus on insulin model and the blood sugar spikes, is they don't really mention much about glucagon. We raise our blood sugars, then insulin brings it down. But if it goes down too low sometimes, we have glucagon, which can bring it up. So assuming you don't have any form of diabetes, our blood sugars will eventually stabilize. That's the thing that we keep on forgetting, or most of these influencers try to omit.
Hello angels, I am so deeply excited about anti-spike, and I wanted to answer the most common questions that I have received.
So I've heard of this anti-spike, so before I continue to go on, if she doesn't explain, I'll explain it right now. Anti-spike is apparently this new product that the Glucose Goddess created to help reduce or massively decrease these blood sugar spikes. But the thing is, before she continues on to talk, that if you don't have diabetes, then you don't really have to worry about your blood sugar spiking, because eventually it will decrease. And to some degree, there is some great evidence here that she's giving, like good advice I mean, where she's just talking about, okay, if your blood sugar spikes too much, then make sure you just pair your meals. It's just a decent healthy diet. Have balanced meals which are full of fats, protein, carbs and fiber. Try not to have sweet meals alone. But at the end of the day, if I want a chocolate bar, I'm not gonna have a whole meal. Sometimes I just want that chocolate bar only. I don't have diabetes, and so I don't really have to worry too much about it. Sure, I might have a little bit of an energy crash, but that's the worst of it.
First of all, how does anti-spike work? Anti-spike contains 4 amazing plants: mulberry leaf extract, lemon, cinnamon, and antioxidants from green vegetables.
The main thing that reduces our blood sugars is fiber, or pairing it with a meal. Let's go on.
This formulation grabs about 40% of the sugar and carbs you just ate, and instead of letting them go through to your bloodstream where they will create a glucose spike, they actually bring those carbs down to your microbiome, which feeds on them. Does anti-spike work like Ozempic? Ozempic is a drug that tricks your body into thinking there's more GLP-1 in your system. GLP-1 is a hormone that makes you feel more satiated. Anti-spike actually naturally increases GLP-1. There's no trick there, but it does have this beneficial effect on that hormone as well.
So Ozempic is a diabetes drug that can reduce your blood sugars, but the side effect is that it makes you feel full because it increases gastric emptying. It speeds up the movement of food through your body. Unless you have meta-analyses backing this up, which she doesn't, this is a very big claim, and this is very harmful for people, saying that this will be the cure to your blood sugar spikes. When in reality, if you don't have blood sugar problems or diabetes, then you don't really have to be worrying about this.
Is it more powerful than vinegar and berberine? Yes, absolutely. It's more powerful than vinegar, than berberine, than chromium, than anything else out there, really. So you can replace all of those with anti-spike.
Vinegar, berberine, chromium reduce your blood sugars? Is that what she's trying to say? Because the interesting thing about this is that if one person sees this who has diabetes and uses anti-spike formula, they're going to think that it's a secret cure above diet. Obviously, like, there's so much misinformation going on about this anti-spike thing. It's not a cure to so many things. We need to go to the basics. Fiber, protein, food pairing, reducing sugar. This is good marketing, because if you want to make a good product, you have to create a problem, which she did, and then next you have to create a solution in a bottle, which she did.
Because anti-spike has both that short-term effect on a spike and also long-term benefit.
I'm completely speechless. The reason why I'm always stumbling with my words and stuttering is because I can't believe this is a real thing. There's no strong evidence behind this. You can say something's backed up on research and it reduces the glucose uptake by 40%, but you've only done it on, like, maybe, for example, like 2 humans or 2 rats. But just because you have that research paper means you can claim as big as possible, but we need to focus on the quality of the evidence. Are there 20 studies done on exactly the same thing? Are there 50 studies done on the same team? Are there meta-analyses, which is a collection of lots of studies and they compile it into one big summary? Is this done in the short term? Is this done in the long term? Is there follow-up? We don't really know the evidence behind this. I'm being honest, from my dietetic knowledge, I don't understand mulberry extract and lemon, but what I do know is that it has a very, very minimal impact on your blood glucose. If anything, simply stress would have a more stronger impact on your blood glucose than all of these little things. These tiny things which wouldn't make much of a difference. So that's my rant for now. Let's focus on the other videos before I get too riled up.
Secret ingredient that allows you to eat dessert and still go into fat burning mode. What is it?
Vinegar.
Really? Vinegar just for fat burning? Inhale, exhale, play.
Studies, I was a bit shocked. I was like, wow, this is crazy that nobody's talking about this. So 1 tablespoon of vinegar in a tall glass of water, make sure you dilute it before a meal, can cut the glucose spike of your meal by up to 30%.
It's incredible.
Without you needing to change anything about what you're eating. You just add the vinegar before the meal of your day that's going to be the highest in carbs, for example, and you still enjoy your meal with less impact on your body thanks to the vinegar. And any type of vinegar works, except avoid the very syrupy, aged, Italian balsamic.
Sadly, but yes.
Because that one has a bit more sugar in it. Super simple. Tremendous impact, especially if you're somebody who suffers from post-meal cravings.
Okay, so I'm gonna attach a meta-analysis on vinegar consumption on glycemic control in adults with type 2 diabetes. And jumping straight to the conclusion, it already debunked what exactly the glucose goddess was talking about. Vinegar content varied across the studies, and the sample sizes included studies are relatively small. Therefore, caution should be exercised when trying to extrapolate the results to a larger population. Maybe there might have been a little bit of an increase, but the studies were really small, and we can't say that it's going to affect many people. So I'm gonna add the study in the link in the description of this bio. This isn't evidence-based, and the thing is that she's not a dietitian. As dietitians, we have to work by the evidence. If we provide something that's just not evidence-based, or we provide wrong information, we can get in trouble, we can lose our license. But since she's a biochemist, she can say whatever she wants, and there are no boards which are going to approach her for her credibility regarding the evidence of the studies.
You can reduce the glucose spike of your meal by up to 75% by just changing the order of the foods in it.
So before I continue about her talking about the order of the foods and everything, so let's say, for example, she said with vinegar it can reduce your blood sugar spike by 30%. And then this one, if you change the order of the way you eat your meals by 75%. So if I combine vinegar and the way I change the meals by eating them in a certain order, then that would lead to close to 100%. Anyway, let's go. Let's continue. I'm just playing around here.
The correct order is vegetables first, proteins and fats second, and starches and sugars last. And the main reason this is so effective is because fiber, when it arrives first in your digestive system, fiber deploys itself onto the wall of your upper intestine, forming a protective, gooey mesh that stays there for a few hours.
I will actually do that with my daughter. I figured out that if I give her, let's say, the broccoli first, then the salmon, and then the sweet potato wedges. Actually, often she's so full she doesn't even eat that many of the sweet potato.
So I'm going to pause really quickly. So this is a reaction to, well, obviously my reaction to Dr. Ranjan's podcast with the glucose goddess in it. And interestingly, in the description, I found the advice discussed in the clip may not be suitable for you if you're recovering from an eating disorder or suffering from an eating disorder. The reason why is because this is a very disordered eating habit to choose to order your meals, to have this first, then this, rather than simply just enjoying the meal. I like to debunk this because your gut is not like a conveyor belt that's running really, really quickly. When you eat the food, it actually sits in your stomach to be broken down by the acid for a while, and then it moves onto the small intestine and then onwards. So unless you're eating each ingredient separately, and then you wait another 30 minutes, then I wouldn't really worry about the timings or the way that you just eat your meals one by one. At the end of the day, it's still gonna get into your stomach. It's gonna all sit together in your stomach, and then it's gonna eventually move onto your small intestine. This reminds me of the time when I was in university to become a dietitian, that when I was working in McDonald's, I was being trained by one of my crew trainers how to assemble a cheeseburger, and then he was like, ketchup, mustard, onions, cheese, then burger, and then accidentally I popped in burger, onions, mustard, cheese, ketchup, and they said, oh, it's so wrong, Jonathan, try to do it again. And I said to him, well, it's still gonna be in the customer's stomach anyway. He's still gonna taste all the foods differently. He's not gonna have a different reaction to it, and he's not even going to notice it. So the same thing that when you try to eat foods in order, which is very disordered, it's a disordered eating habit, could lead you to an eating disorder in the long run. It's still gonna be in your stomach, and your body's not gonna notice it unless you're completely stretching out your meals.
Hi, I'm Jessie, I'm a biochemist, and I'm going to teach you something very important about breakfast.
Okay, this is going to be a really, really interesting one. Let's get on to this.
So when we eat something sweet at breakfast, like this chocolate cereal, you may think that you're getting energy, but actually that's not the case. You're getting dopamine in the brain, which is the pleasure molecule. But on the inside, with that big glucose spike, you're harming your mitochondria's ability to make energy. Protein for breakfast means happy mitochondria, means actual sustained energy in the body.
She says that we need to focus our meals focusing on protein. You know that chocolate cereal over there probably has like 8 grams of protein, maybe like 10 grams of protein, depending on how much milk there is. This egg, mushrooms, and tomato dish probably also has like 10 grams of protein. One egg has roughly 6 grams of protein in it. And then chocolate cereal, like a portion of milk, is easily 6 grams of protein in it as well. And I think this chart is actually made by a kid. Although it might seem like very scientific and official, I really, really doubt that this is an actual representation. I think they just kind of guesstimated that it would look like this, because many cereals are fortified with lots of vitamins and minerals, B vitamins, iron. There's way more iron in fortified cereals than the eggs, mushroom, and tomato dish. So the thing is, you might feel a bit exhausted if you're just assuming there's only one egg, because we need to remember that our brain's main source of energy is from glucose, and it uses roughly like 100 grams of glucose a day. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have this egg, mushrooms, and tomato dish, sure, the blood sugar rise is much, much less, but it's also because it's much, much less in calories, much, much less in carbohydrates, starchy carbohydrates. There are no starchy carbohydrates, so you're going to be feeling really, really hungry right after, because this isn't a balanced meal. It's just a mix of protein, fats, and a tiny bit of carbs and fiber in there. Sure, we can have the chocolate cereal, and sure, it might like lead to a blood sugar spike, but if you don't have any diabetes, you don't really have to worry about it, because it will bring blood sugar rise much, much lower. So like I said at the start of this video, many people who focus on the insulin model of energy, insulin model of calories, they forget that if you don't have diabetes, your blood sugar will go down eventually. It's just the normal mechanism of your body. If you eat more food in your body, then it's going to release more fullness hormones, leptin, to re-regulate your body. If you have a high concentration of blood sugar in your body, then your body's going to release insulin to bring it back to its normal levels. If you're feeling cold and you're shivering, your body's going to increase its body heat. Our body has this thing called homeostasis, where it'll bring everything back to its equilibrium. So we don't have to focus too much on high blood sugars. If anything, just focus on making your meals nutritious and delicious. Protein, fats, carbs, and fiber. Let's try not to fearmonger ourselves that high insulin rises are instantly going to kill you, or poison. It's rotting your body. The glucose goddess, I'm sure she has the best intentions, but because of this massive following, and she's not disclaiming, but so many people can have disordered eating habits and can take the message wrongly. They can take the message quite literally, like when she says it's doing damage to your mitochondria. You should be really, really careful of that. So if I'm gonna rate the glucose goddess in the binge eating recovery scale, I would rate her a 3 out of 10. 3 points because she does give some good advice here and now and then to focus on having more fruits, vegetables, fiber, but she's missing 7 points because the delivery of the message is essentially fear-mongering, saying that you need to avoid blood sugar spikes as much as possible. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and comment below what are your thoughts on the glucose goddess. So like, subscribe, very, very risky advice if you continue to follow her from a binge eating recovery standpoint and an eating disorder recovery standpoint. So I'll see you in the next video. See ya!